Fraxses Cheetah version 4.0.0, Release Notes. The latest Fraxses release, Cheetah, is named after the fastest land animal, whose qualities speak to the enhanced speed, scalability and efficiency that characterize this release. These enhancements are facilitated by the integration of a leading open-source technology, Apache Kyuubi. Apache Kyuubi is a distributed, multi-tenant, thrift JDBC ODBC server built on Apache Spark. It enhances Spark's service capabilities, allowing for a more efficient, scalable, and convenient way to share Spark resources in a multi-tenant environment. Kyuubi provides a unified data access gateway, serving as an intermediate layer between various data client applications and the Spark computing engine. This setup enables users to easily and securely execute SQL queries, perform data analysis, and handle data processing tasks across different data sources and clusters. The integration of Kyuubi offers three key advantages. Fraxses architecture becomes more streamlined. The elimination of the custom security server in favor of Kyuubi's Auth-Z module simplifies the infrastructure, reducing the complexity and potential points of failure in the data access flow. Kyuubi removes the requirement for custom drivers to connect to Fraxses data objects, enabling clients to use native Spark drivers instead. Replacing the Spark Thrift server with Kyuubi leverages its optimized resource management and multi-tenancy support. This results in improved resource utilization and scalability, ensuring that your data infrastructure can handle increasing workloads and user demand. Additional security-based changes. The former admin type role is not applicable in Cheetah. A role that has access to a menu option, for example security users, will now have read, create, update and delete rights on the associated screen or grid, even though that user is not an admin user. Both the Keycloak OpenID Connect and the OpenID Connect identity providers have been enabled in Keycloak. This means that both types of authentication protocols can be managed within Keycloak directly, and it is no longer necessary to access the Fraxses OpenID common config file through Lens, as was previously the case. Users can now be linked to a principal organization when they are set up. The Fraxses principal role is no longer assigned by default in Cheetah. Fraxses Release Summary. These components have been replaced in the Cheetah release. Compute Server has been replaced with Compute Server Manager. Gateway has been replaced with Coordinator. These components have been deprecated. Security Server. CSV Thrift Service. New mandatory components. Apache Kyuubi facilitates a more streamlined interaction with Apache Spark, acting as a gateway to enable large-scale data processing and analytics tasks to be executed efficiently. It simplifies the process of submitting Spark jobs and managing Spark sessions, which is particularly beneficial in environments where multiple users or services need to interact with Spark concurrently. This addition enhances the system's ability to handle big data workflows and improves overall performance and scalability. Power BI Spark connections have been enabled in the Compute Server, allowing usage of direct query from Power BI. The Fraxses CSV pre-pull component addresses a crucial aspect of Kubernetes-based deployments: the availability of necessary Docker images on all nodes to avoid delays in launching containers, especially in dynamic environments. By pre-pulling the Spark Docker images to each node, the system ensures that Spark executors can be deployed instantly, without waiting for image download and initialization. The separation of the Fraxses gateway from the Coordinator component advances the modular design approach of our deployment. Relocating the Fraxses gateway to leverage Lego's data and making the Coordinator a standalone component allows the system to be more flexible in managing data workflows and coordinating tasks across various microservices. A new SQL editor module has been added to the Object Builder canvas. It enables a SQL interface to create one or more linked objects using SQL scripts. This empowers technical users to continue to write transformation layers using SQL, and still leverage the power of Fraxses for federation, lineage, and governance. In addition, it allows for the ingestion of existing SQL scripts into Fraxses without any additional manual effort. The SQL editor is accessed by selecting the Script Data Object function in the Object Builder. This will open the SQL parser modal. If you have not used this module before, it is recommended that you read the guidelines, which outline the do's and don'ts of using the SQL parser. The SQL query for the data object you wish to create can be manually typed or pasted into the editor window, and a development role selected from the dropdown. Clicking the Create button closes the modal, returns you to the Object Builder, and renders the newly created data object on the canvas. The data object can then be validated, run, and published as normal. Existing data fabric components. Note that only components to which changes have been made in this release are discussed in this video. For a complete list of components, including those that have not changed, see the Cheetah Release Notes on the Intenda Customer Portal. Entry. Fraxses Legos and Fraxses Entry have been modified to write necessary files to the Fraxses compressed location if they fail to write to static. The entry landing page, which previously directed to the Intenda wiki, has been redirected to the Intenda Support Center site. An execution problem that caused write-back to fail when the cluster was running in encrypted mode has been resolved. Insights. A SQL script, which creates a default Fraxses data source connection to Kyuubi, if no Fraxses connection exists, has been added to the Insights container. Previously, when executing a query, Insights would first connect to the data source to confirm connectivity, and only then would the query be executed against the data source. In Cheetah, this functionality has been replaced with a never mark unavailable principle that prohibits Insights from marking any data source as unavailable. In addition, Insights no longer executes a query to test a connection to a data source. User queries are now simply executed without verification. Functionality has been implemented to extend Insights to gain access to the log files with valid login details. 3 custom functions have been added to the custom functions XML file. Previously, the user's role in Insights was updated to null if it was not linked to any roles in Legos. In Cheetah, rather than updating the user if the role type is null, the user is deleted from Insights to prevent access to the site. When the user in question is assigned a role in Legos again, the system recreates that user in Insights during the login process. Kafka has been updated from version 3.3.1 to version 3.6.1. Legos. The account management process has been enhanced to allow for personal access tokens to be generated. These tokens facilitate external access to data sources and data objects via dbeaver, Excel, and Power BI. This functionality is accessed by clicking the user icon at the top right of the screen and selecting Token Management from the dropdown. This opens the Account Management modal. Any previously issued tokens are reflected in the grid, which shows when they were issued, if they have expired, and when they expired. To generate a new token, click the Create New Token button. Set the validity length in months and then click OK. A personal access token will be generated on screen. Selecting the copy icon allows you to copy and paste the token for future use. The token is encrypted when you exit, and on returning to the account management modal, its status will be reflected as active. When checking an object out, the version is now defaulted to the latest version. When an object in the published data object list is checked out of the object library, the select version to be checked out field in the checkout modal now defaults to the latest published version of that data object. Should you wish to check out an earlier version of the data object, click the down arrow and select the desired version from the drop-down, Then select the relevant role from the Select Development Role dropdown. Click Save to exit the checkout modal, and return to the Object Builder, where the data object that you have checked out will now appear in the Workspaces section. Header data and field data have been removed from the Object Builder and Pedigree, and now pass all required data through directly to reduce render time. Cache busting has been implemented for Legos, ensuring that the most recent versions of files are always fetched in the browser. The introduction of a new logout process in Cheetah sees the previous logout button being replaced by two new buttons, namely End Session and Logout. The End Session button provides the same functionality as the previous Logout button, clearing locally stored user data and navigating to the Logged Out screen. It allows the user to sign in to the application without logging in again, as long as their token is still active. The new Logout button signs the user out of the system, as well as out of the OAuth provider, whether that be Keycloak or another solution. In addition, this button terminates sessions on any other apps the user is currently logged into, including Insights. The data objects in the Folders section of the Object Builder now update to the latest published version when an object is checked out and published. Unused endpoints and services have been removed from events. The Request to Publish list has been updated to match the behavior of the Request to Publish process. The pedigree now auto-adjusts itself when various headers are expanded or collapsed, eliminating the unnecessary blank spaces that previously remained on the canvas. The three events listed on screen have been removed from selecting and deselecting of fields, as they belong on a higher level. These events still fire when data objects are dragged onto or deleted from the canvas, but not when fields are selected or deselected. This ensures that the canvas is no longer redrawn each time a user selects or deselects a field. Cheetah introduces 3 further improvements to Legos that are documented in this clip. All data objects in the Object Builder, including those at the bottom of the list, now display their context menu within the bounds of the screen. This ensures that if you need to modify an object when all libraries and workspaces are expanded, clicking the hamburger icon next to the object enables you to view its full context menu without having to scroll, as was previously the case. On the data object screen, permissions, access, and row filters have been disabled for entities. When setting data object permissions and selecting the Update or Delete indicator fields, the Read indicator is now automatically selected as true. Legos data. 2 new events have been added. The first event returns the owners of a data object. The second event reads the comments in the data object's revision history. Grid filters are now ordered by length, ensuring that a shorter parameter cannot replace itself with a secondary parameter. The More Info modal selected from the available options when right-clicking on a data object in the Object Builder library has been significantly extended to consolidate all information pertaining to the data object into one area for ease of access. The same extended information is available on the History and Compare Versions tabs of this modal. More info has been added for the Data Object Overview, which displays all the information typically available on the Data Object Configuration modal, and includes the data object name, version number, data object status, validation status of the object, who it was created by, last modified by, and published by, as well as the date and time of these actions. The comments added by the developer who created the object when submitting it for publication, as well as those added by the owner when approving or rejecting the object, are also visible as release notes. The view options of fields, filters, permissions, attribute access, and row filters remain unchanged in Cheetah. New view options for relationships, cache info, data owners, and data source query have been added. The Relationships option shows the joins between the entities or data object within the object being viewed. The Cache Info option will show whether the object has been manually cached, or whether a cache schedule exists for it. Data Owners displays the list of users who have owner access to the data sources on which the data object was built. Data source query will display both the federated query and the data source query if push was selected on the data object. Security settings for masking and row-level filtering, which were previously applied at query level, have been extended to the REST API and are now applied in Legos. This affects the app query and preview events, which results in data objects being run as the signed-in user and not as admin. This is facilitated by creating a new connection pool for the user. The cache delete event has been fixed. The event now updates the ODC view back to the original object, and no longer uses the incorrect object name to delete, as was previously the case. A fix has been implemented to ensure that Kyuubi respects the resource groups it receives from Fraxses. Join versions now update correctly on checkout. Legos data now checks security on the parent head code for the canvas, and not for the head code. Metadata Database Manager. Data objects now store the data sources they use during the validation process. The Presto parser now has a flexible new mechanism to correctly interpret asterisk wildcard characters and process them appropriately. The PostgreSQL All connector allows discovery of all schemas in a PostgreSQL database. The query engine now supports data objects with up to 28 nested layers. Admin permissions are now specific to the organization and role a user is associated with. A metadatabase table called Fraxses log script (exe) has been added to log specific script executions. It is now possible to utilize the user code as a row filter on a data object by using =session user brackets. Note that this is only implemented when added to the highest level of an object, and is not available as criteria or an object filter. The status of data source discovery is now maintained until the next discovery of the data source. A foreign key has been added between data source and data source discovery status. Data objects with a status of published, pending approval, and archived cannot be updated via the API. When saving a data object, the aggregation and distinct options are now more clearly mutually exclusive. Legos has been updated to send through actions as Pascal case for system group modify event. This resolves a previous problem that prevented records from being edited inline in the grid. Support for unions when fields have differing attributes has been improved. Union data objects no longer support field-level filters. Support for cached unions with field aliases referenced in another data object has been improved. An issue where the source union field alias populated from the dependent data object, rather than from source union, has been resolved. PostgreSQL. Postgres has been updated from version 14.2 to version 14.11. Hive schema, Postgres column, is rewrite enabled, has been added to compute store database. Zookeeper. Zookeeper has been updated from version 3.8.0 to version 3.9.1. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoy the Cheetah experience.